Good morning. This meeting is being held in a hybrid format to enhance public participation. Instructions for participation are included in the public meeting notices and may be found on the Gas Commission's website. I would like to acknowledge the presence of a quorum with the participation of Vice Chair Driscoll, Commissioner Urbania, and Commissioner McGraw. I would like to have the agenda read, marked, and entered into the record as Gas Commission Exhibit Number 1. The first item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from the Commission's April 14th, 2026 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the April 14th meeting?
Make a motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposition? The ayes have it and the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the Executive Director report. It was the third, now it's going to be the second.
Good morning. My name is Heidi Wyszynski. I'm a senior hearing examiner with the Gas Commission, and I am reading the staff report prepared by Executive Director Jamela McClendon, who could not be with us today. Last month, Commission staff continued working on the FY27 capital budget materials, prepared for the introduction of PGW-related ordinances to City Council, reviewed PGW's quarterly financial reports, attended PGW's third annual Energy and Innovation Symposium at Temple University, and prepared for the submission of PGW's fiscal year 27 operating budget.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is PGW's proposed fiscal year 2027 capital budget and related matters. Commission staff prepared and submitted a final recommended decision to the commissioners on April 27th, 2026. This was shared with PGW and the Public Advocate on May 5th, 2026. Please have the final recommended decision marked and entered into the record as Gas Commission Exhibit Number 2. We would like to provide the participants with the final opportunity to make a brief presentation before we call the question to vote. First, we will hear from PGW. Mr. Desant.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Andre Desant for PGW. Let me focus initially on the recommended decision that was recently issued and indicate areas of agreement at the outset. First, PGW agrees with the PGC staff's recommendation to approve the 2027 capital budget subject to stipulations that we've agreed to in the record. This area of agreement encompasses most line items and areas of spending proposed in the budget proceeding. Second, with regard to the proposed replacement of the LNG liquefier, PGW also agrees with the PGC staff's recommendations concerning the existing LNG liquefier is at its latter stages or the end of its useful life, and that it should be replaced as a new liquefier sized to meet design winter conditions. So those are areas that we agree. Of course, you'll recall that throughout the proceeding, PGW has asked for full funding or conditional funding for the project. And that is our preferred course. And we recognize, however, that the Commission must weigh in and make a decision based upon the evidence presented, and we will take it from there. Let me stop there because I think we have fundamental areas of agreement and our points of departure are clearly marked. And we've gone over in detail all the reasons that we believe the project should be approved in full and gone through the P3 negotiations and the FEED study, which is necessary to be done next. And also we need to have the fiscal 2027 capital budget approved as soon as possible before the recess of City Council. But I know you're fully aware of that, and I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ballinger, are there any statements on behalf of the advocate?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Gas Commission. I'm Robert Ballinger here for the Public Advocate again. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a statement. We maintain the positions we previously took regarding PGW's proposed LNG project, so I won't reiterate all of those here today. Furthermore, we do not believe the Commission can prevent us from considering all aspects of a future LNG proposal, including the necessity of such a project and all pertinent details. We sincerely urge you not to approve recommendations to the contrary that could be interpreted to limit the scope of review in future proceedings. Commission staff have supplied an updated memorandum in advance of this meeting, setting forth a revised recommendation to you. No opportunity to address that recommendation was provided in writing, so I must address it now. I fundamentally disagree with staff's conclusion that PGW has substantiated its need for a liquefier capable of producing 3.3 BCF of LNG annually. Staff previously recognized PGW's proposal was outsized and so could adversely impact rates. Staff now completely ignore those findings, placing customers at risk. Your staff rely exclusively upon PGW's claims regarding design winter criteria, which are unsubstantiated and severely outdated. Reliance on PGW's claims regarding design winter criteria is inappropriate to determine the amount of LNG PGW needs to serve customers today and in the future. I'll explain why. PGW's planning and development of its LNG facilities was a project undertaken in the 1960s. We should not be making decisions about the size of LNG projects today without updated information. Otherwise, we're relying on information that's more than a half a century old. In recommending 3.3 BCF liquefier capacity, Commission staff failed to take into account PGW's existing storage facilities, which provide nearly 4 BCF of usable storage. This means even if there is a design winter, which there hasn't been in many, many years, PGW would not need to liquefy 3.3 BCF unless it had foolishly depleted all of its reserves. That's not a realistic scenario to entertain. PGW's current operations demonstrate that PGW does not need 3 BCFs of LNG annually. PGW has not produced more than 2.2 BCF of LNG in any single year since at least 2003. During the same time, although PGW has the right to interrupt certain large industrial customers so that it has the gas to serve those of us who need it to heat our homes, PGW has never once had to do so. It has never faced a shortage of gas with its existing facility capable of producing no more than 2.2 BCF. In fact, in many years, PGW has had excess supply. It has sold that excess supply in off-system transactions. It has not used it for customers. It has sold it to trucking, to be trucked out of its facilities outside of Philadelphia. All of that was disregarded in the updated recommendation that you received. So there is no justification for a 3.3 BCF liquefier, and the public advocate will continue to oppose a capital budget for a liquefier of that size. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballinger. Next, we will take brief comments from members of the public. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes and should only address PGW's proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. If public comments become substantially repetitive, the chair may ask speakers to limit their comment to only new information not already presented in the interest of maintaining an efficient and orderly meeting.
First on the sign-in list to speak, we have Pat Libby. Pat Libby here. Oh, okay, sorry, that is a no. Catherine, is it Kraus? Hey, you are first on our speaker list. You could please introduce yourself, and if you're representing an organization, let us know that as well. And after that, I will start your time.
My name is Catherine Kraus. I live in Port Richmond, Philadelphia. I am not representing any organization. KRAUSS.
You're ready to begin, you may begin.
I live in Port Richmond. My name is Kate Kraus, and I live in Port Richmond, close to the Delaware River. Many more members of my neighborhood would be making comment here today, but the meetings are held in the middle of the day and have just cut off participation virtually online, a decision hostile to the participation of my community. I'm concerned that PGW, which is selling, I have read, less and less gas, is looking for a plan to make more money. And that plan, these LNG tanks are in opposition to health of my community and other Philadelphians. Port Richmond already has high cancer rates, and the city's childhood asthma rates are over triple the national average. The two giant LNG tanks, and if you haven't been there, you can't imagine how big they are because they don't show up as big as they really are in photographs. The two giant LNG tanks are on a floodplain next to the river. If the tanks flood, the electricity will be cut off. The LNG, which must remain at negative 260 degrees Fahrenheit, will warm, expand, and could explode. The tanks are walking distance from hundreds of row houses. This is just not safe for the people of Port Richmond or the people of Philadelphia. And I would add that my neighbors are still traumatized by the explosion that destroyed 2 or 3 houses and injured, I don't know how many people from natural gas or methane just in the last couple of years. The neighborhood is still upset about that, obviously. That's the end of my testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Emily Davis. If you could please approach the microphone and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Emily Davis. I'm a resident of Philadelphia and a member of Geodelphia. I was a PGW customer for 30 years, but am now living in an all-electric home. We all know that our city needs to move away from fossil fuels. We've seen all of the death and destruction done by explosions. The damage to our health is just as devastating. When we first started to use gas appliances, we were unaware of the toxic chemicals we were subjecting ourselves to, but we know now. We were also unaware of the damage being done to our climate, but we know now. The commission must eliminate the 182 million LNG plant item from the 2027 budget. The budget must instead support infrastructure that will move us toward carbon-free and alternatives that align with the city's goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
I apologize, the writing is hard on this one for me. Is it Paul Divine Batone? Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Paul.
My name is Paul Divine Batone. Nice to see folks again. I'm a pediatrician out here with an organization. So, as I said, we're back talking about this potential liquefied natural gas plant. As folks have already started to suggest, we've known for a long time that natural gas has a lot of health issues, raises a lot of health issues. Straight up poisons people. That's why it smells, so that we can protect ourselves from that. We also know that in our homes, it's actually been linked for decades now to higher rates of respiratory illness, especially in children, and higher rates of pediatric asthma. Very relevant, as Ms. Kraus so nicely said, in a city where our rate of pediatric asthma is already more than 3 times the national average. When we think about the extraction, the processing, the transport, the storage of natural gas, we know that lots of volatile organic compounds that have been extensively linked to cancer are in much higher rates in the areas around those plants. Grays Ferry, PES, much higher rates of cancer. Port Richmond shares a couple of interesting facts with them. They have a highway, which we know is also a big source of pollution. They also are in the top 25% of cancer rates in the city. It's not a coincidence that the same places that have these plants also have these highways, also have lots of infrastructure that can pollute and cause human illness. These are what we think about when we think about environmental determinants of health. We think about environmental justice, and when you think about how do we transition away from these issues. Does say nothing about the health risks that come from climate change. We know that we're causing more flooding that pollutes our waterways. We're causing more wildfires that pollutes our air. All of this related to the combustion of fossil fuels, including natural gas. And the last thing I'll say is, again, we're all here, and it's very concerning to me that all of a sudden this review that said one thing last time, now says something different with, as the public advocate said, very little reasoning as to why. It was very confusing to everybody why last time we all just kind of adjourned, there was no decision made, now we're all coming back, and there's this new report that says something different. So it raises the concern that something happened behind the scenes that we didn't get to see, that was not party to us, the public. This is a city-owned gas works, and it's very confusing as to why this would be a now different recommendation, and raise a lot of questions about why we would be considering this when it was previously said that it did not make sense for many reasons that the advocate so beautifully stated. So thank you very much for listening. And, again, I think especially from the pediatric health perspective, from our public health perspective, we need to be thinking about how do we transition away, how do we meet our goals for sustainability and health in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you. Linnea Bond.
Hi. Little taller, so I'm going to raise this up. I'm Linnea Bond. I'm speaking on behalf of Physicians for Social Responsibility Pennsylvania. I agree with what the public advocate said, and I just want to raise up some images that are in my mind today when these are the rooms in which we make the decisions about our future, right? These are the moments. And what I'm thinking about today is the explosion that just happened in Overbrook of a bagel bakery that exploded in March from a gas facility, or from a gas explosion. They were set to reopen before Mother's Day, and it exploded again, also due to gas. I'm thinking about my partner visiting Mexico and where his family's from, and seeing a river dried up. I'm thinking about my coworker who moved into a home with her husband, who's a veteran suffering from trauma, PTS, and his their water is polluted. It's undrinkable, and because of gas operations where they live in Montrose. And I'm thinking about the 16 years of an entire community in Dimock who have not had access to clean water because of a frack out. And there's so many stories. Hearing people cry to me across the state of Pennsylvania about pollution of their water sources, about the NDAs they're forced to sign in order to receive water buffaloes, to have access to clean water after that. Watching gas executives say that there's never been any contamination due to fracking.
15 seconds left in your time.
Thank you. So I want to urge you today to think about the long-term consequences of the decisions that we're making with regard to our gas infrastructure, and our responsibility as a city that owns its gas utility. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Bayer? Bayer.
My name is Sarah Bayer, and I am a resident of Port Richmond. That's why I'm here today.
Whenever you're ready, you may begin.
So I've appeared before this commission before on this issue, and I am here today because what is being decided here is enormously important to my neighborhood, the city, and to our future. I urge the commission to please reject PGW's proposed $182 million LNG plant replacement, and to decline approval of the budget until PGW has meaningfully engaged the community of Port Richmond and the concerns that we have voiced multiple times now and that have been laid out by the public advocate. I'll start with the facts in case we need to review them. Your own commission staff reviewed this proposal and acknowledged, at least initially, that it was outsized. The public advocate agreed and affirmed that PGW has yet to substantiate the need for this replacement and expansion, and has done so again today. Thank you. We were told in April that this was a complex issue deserving more study, and I wholeheartedly agree. But more study means more than just more numbers. It means actually engaging the community that has lived next to this facility for decades, which has not happened since the last time we met. So PGW has not done that. Residents in Port Richmond, my neighbors, organized ourselves because PGW was not transparent with us about what was being planned in our own backyard. We should not have to learn about a $182 million project like this through social media, neighborhood groups, or back channels. We deserved a seat at the table from the beginning. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this part of Port Richmond, I encourage you to visit. I take this route through this industrial corridor to Borsky Park, which is a true neighborhood gem if you haven't been. But as you pass,
You have 15 seconds.
you pass by two 12-story LNG tanks. They're right next to the Franklin slag pile, which is deemed one of the most hazardous places in Philadelphia. You can't miss it. And every day, invisible emissions are vented and linked from this facility into the air that my neighbors and I breathe. I've got 10 seconds now, 8 seconds. All I'm asking you to do is think about the future. Think about your 2050 commitment to a net neutral carbon future, and please make the right decision today. Thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Sarah, thank you very much. I'm glad there was no fire alarm this time.
Alice Liu.
Good morning. My name is Alice Liu. I'm the policy analyst at Clean Air Council. We're a nonprofit environmental org headquartered in Philadelphia. All right. Climate change and energy affordability are some of the most critical issues that Philadelphians are facing today. They are also two sides of the same coin. Unfortunately, the capital budget proposed by Philadelphia Gas Works fails to address either of these issues. So as everyone in the room knows, Philadelphia has committed to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. So this proposal has to reflect this goal. Nearly 90% of PGW's $390 million proposed capital budget is designated for gas processing and distribution. This locks in fracked gas without a clear plan for how to transition ratepayers towards cheaper, cleaner energy alternatives. In fact, infrastructure and pipeline costs are increasingly driving up ratepayer bills and worsening the energy affordability crisis. From my personal experience, 85% of my PGW bill last month went towards delivery charges. Cold weather didn't change that percentage, and so only a fraction of the money I send to PGW through my payments actually pays for the gas I use. Most of it goes towards subsidizing unsustainable infrastructure. PGW's proposal to expand its liquefied natural gas facility in Port Richmond is no different. It undermines the city's 2050 carbon neutrality deadline. And financing an LNG plant expansion without considering the declining trend in gas consumption is simply short-sighted. Spending $182 million on LNG infrastructure in Philly will allow PGW to just sell off excess LNG to commercial buyers while burdening residential and small business customers with these infrastructure costs. So instead of defaulting to a business as usual approach by viewing LNG as the only way to shave peaks and meet customers' heating needs, PGW needs to thoroughly explore the non-gas and cleaner alternatives that are also less volatile in cost and just as reliable, like geothermal for heating and cooling. PGW is already doing important work with a geothermal feasibility study and working with a consulting firm to explore low carbon pathways. And it's critical that PGW's capital spending plan considers the findings of these studies and make sure,
You have a brief conclusion.
yes,
you.
and ensures that it aligns with the city's broader climate commitments and that no project proceeds without actual meaningful public engagement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Houston.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Patrick Houston. I'm with here for climate justice, but testifying on my own behalf. Great. I've said it before, I say it again. I'm urging the Gas Commission to vote against this $182 million allocation for the LNG plant. and require that our municipally owned gas utility actually meaningfully engage communities when proposing large new infrastructure projects of this scale. Right now, our city is on a unsustainable path. It's bad for affordability. It's bad for the climate. Right now in our city, 1 in 4 people face a high energy burden. 1 in 7 folks face a severely high energy burden, paying over 10% of their income on energy. I just learned yesterday that in Philadelphia, the rent burden, or in Hunting Park, where I'm from and where my brother still lives, the rent burden just went up to 60% of residents paying 35% of their income or more on rent. Why am I talking about rent? Because these are also intertwined. I just learned yesterday that farmers in Pennsylvania have lost about $200 million because of this whack spring that we've had weather-wise and the implications that that could have for people's energy bills. Philadelphians are being hit by all angles, whether it's their energy bills, their housing bills, putting food on the table. And if we continue down this path of investing in massive new fossil gas infrastructure with a dwindling rate base, what are we doing for people in Hunting Park, for people in Cobbs Creek who are already struggling? We can break this deadly cycle. We can break this deadly cycle. This capital budget is an incredible opportunity to do
15
so.
seconds.
This capital budget is an incredible opportunity to do so. Every capital budget is an opportunity to do so. Unfortunately, for years, the public has come to PGW saying, you are our municipally owned gas utility. Can we work towards real progress on affordability? Can we work towards real progress on sustainability? Not just lip service, not just rhetoric, not just geothermal feasibility studies that take 4 years with $500,000 to show any results. We're not going to get where we need in time. So
That's your time. If you have a brief conclusion, you may wrap up.
okay. So this is a huge opportunity. I really hope that we can look back on May 12th, 2027 and be like, that was that moment when the Gas Commission was like, we're going to do something different here. We're going to hold PGW to a higher standard. Nobody's saying this is easy. This is very complicated, but it is urgent and it is necessary. There's a moral imperative here. There's a practical imperative here. And it's up to the Gas Commission to make the call on if we're going to continue unsustainable business as usual, or if we're going to seize these opportunities and shift how we operate. So we're really hoping you'll vote in that way today.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Patrick. I'd like to recognize State Representative Hohenstein. He just arrived. So, hi.
Eric Pomeroy.
My name is Eric Pomeroy. I'm with Third Act, Pennsylvania, and a resident of Center City. So what I'm here to talk about is how the world is turning away from fossil fuels for many reasons that we've already talked about. Burning fossil fuels is terrible for people's health. It's changing the climate in disastrous ways, and it's contributing to global insecurity, as we are very much aware of right now. So the city has very wisely made the commitment to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. But achieving that goal means making investments in finding replacements to natural gas, not doubling down on the disastrous path we've been on for the last half century. Certainly not doubling down by making an enormous investment in an LNG plant that is not needed right now. PGW needs to start thinking of itself as an energy company. It's in the business of providing energy to the people of Philadelphia, rather than being in the business of selling more gas. Of course, such a change in focus will take time and money. But the time to start making that change is now, not 20 years from now. So I urge the members of the Philadelphia Gas Commission to reject the proposed expenditures on the LNG plant and to assert the city's power to force PGW to start planning for a clean energy future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rep. Hohenstein, are you here to make a public comment? Or- Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure before we continue. Thanks.
Karen Melton.
Good morning. My name is Karen Melton. I'm speaking as a citizen and a PGW customer. While PGW is in the midst of third-party negotiations for what will get built and by who, it makes no sense to approve funding for something PGW may or may not build, especially given that they have to move forward with the debt financing in anticipation of having the money to spend. Now, add to that the point the report of the hearing examiner calls status of design plans, and I'll just read one sentence from the report. PGW, in his responses to the informal discovery requests submitted by both the hearing examiners and the public advocate, has disclosed that at this time, PGW does not have details on the exact location, design, detailed engineering, or equipment for this project. So this 182 million we're talking about is at best a rough estimate. And you have to assume it's a low ball because that's what rough estimates always are. And if you approve it, you're pretty much on the hook for whatever the real amount turns out to be, since you already have 182 million in sunk costs. If you're going to even consider funding a bigger rebuilt Port Richmond facility, wouldn't you like to do it after the third-party negotiations are resolved, after hearing what alternatives have been researched, and based on a well-developed plan that reflects what it's really going to cost?
You have 15 seconds left.
I ask you to adopt the recommendation of the hearing examiners and deny this portion of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Furcht.
Good morning, Peter Furch, Philadelphia resident representing myself. I've been an engineer for 40 years. The engineering design process goes like this. First, you do high-level conceptual design, rough estimates on cost, schedules, and economic analyses. They're presented to management for approval to proceed with a FEED study. The FEED study is funded and executed. Assuming the economics falling out of the FEED study are good, further funding is secured for developing detailed design specifications from which firm design and construction estimates are produced. These firm estimates and updated economic analyses are in hand. Management is approached again for full project funding. Just earlier, PGW argued they need the full $182 million approved so they can start their FEED study. Really? PGW should be asking only, at best, for FEED funding. When you finish your FEED study, come back in future budgets for design spec funding, and later for full project funding. You have time. As a reminder, it has been taken PGW 4 years to complete a small geothermal project FEED. And also a reminder that PGC, that you approved only money for a geothermal FEED. You did not approve the full-blown geothermal project. I'd like to ask what has changed now that the full LNG project funding should be approved before a FEED is completed. PGC, have you asked PGW for the basis of their $182 million estimate? If they haven't done a FEED, and they haven't, it has to be based largely on best guesses, replacement in kind, business as usual, rough estimates of cost, and then marked up by probably 35% or more, marked up substantially because of all the uncertainty. With an overestimated $182 million approved now, PGW won't have to come back later and ask for more. They're guessing high now so they have plenty for later. In closing, approving funding for the entire LNG project at this stage of engineering economic study completeness would be approving a gift for PGW and an act of irresponsibility on the part of the PGC. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Mitch Channon.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name's Mitch Channon. I'm a Philadelphia resident. I'm also the chair of the Climate Justice Committee within Reclaim Philadelphia. I think this is the third time I've spoken about this proposal now. I echo the sentiments, the asks of my fellow commenters and ask that the commission please reject the $182 million expenditure for the LNG plan at this time. I want to add a couple things. We're not asking you to do something remarkably different from what other regulators are doing. There are regulators in other states, such as Massachusetts, that are requiring a full examination of cheaper, more sustainable alternatives to major gas infrastructure investments, like the Massachusetts DPU. You could and should do the same thing. I've talked in the past about why I believe there's no justification for the design day standard that's been proposed, why we would need to produce the amount of LNG that PGW is proposing, and I appreciate the comments from the public advocate on that matter. I want to add one other angle. My impression is that PGW and the regulators basically don't care how much gas is actually needed for Philadelphia, because you assume that they can just sell whatever remains to customers outside the city. They'll make money, no problem. It really doesn't make any difference, right? The problem is that that assumption is based on the notion that gas demand nationally, regionally, globally will remain stable or will increase over the next 20 years. That is betting that we will burn up the planet rather than protecting it. It's also flying in the face of accelerating trends toward electrification and renewable energy development across the world, which are now accelerated even more by the supply shock from the war with Iran. There's a rapid shift away from natural gas. If we're assuming that we will make back our $182 investment, regardless of how much gas is needed in Philadelphia, because there will be a robust market outside the city, that assumption absolutely needs to be examined rigorously and challenged. Otherwise, we are at risk of wasting $182 million on a stranded asset. The city should be requiring a full examination of alternatives to ensure that we can have reliable and affordable heat throughout the winter as technology changes, as the shift to renewable energy proceeds, and as we try to meet our 2050 climate commitment, which requires phasing out natural gas by 2050, while this plant would still be in service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Last speaker is Eric Stowers.
Right. Thank you. My name is Eric Stowers. I'm a Port Richmond resident.
When you're ready.
Thank you. As the last person talking before you make your vote, I'm concerned that I wish I could have the right thing that'll change your mind to vote against the LNG plant. I wish I could say the right thing within 2 minutes, but I'm concerned that you've already made your decision on what you're going to vote for. I'm worried that you decided before we even made our public comments, because what information did you look at over the last month? There's been no communication to the Port Richmond community, not from PGW, not from the Gas Commission, and it just makes me wonder, if there was a desire to have more information from the last month, what has happened? And it just seems like there's an operation operating in a black box, and that's very disheartening from somebody in the community who cares a lot about what's happening. I want to read something just in case it does help. These are two things from the budget. It talks about the cold box replacement. I don't feel like the budget's been scrutinized enough. Here's what it says about being replaced. Ultimately, contract terms could not be reached to provide a solution meeting PGW's requirements. What contract terms? What requirements? It says this as well. In addition, cold box replacement services could be provided by an independent third party, but such services would not include process guarantees on the liquefier performance. PGW admits that there are alternatives that they could look into, but they just haven't. And I wonder if you have done the right scrutiny to make sure that they are proceeding in the right way. During the last month, I created a petition and over 150 people in our community have signed on to it. I'm not even sure if you've had the chance to take a look at that, but there are a lot of community concerns that are not being addressed, and PGW is not being held accountable to address and engage our community. There's so much more that could be looked into to make sure that we have the right plan of action. And if you vote to just proceed with the full budget, including the LNG plan today, we are at a fork in the road and you are going the wrong way for what's right for our community in Port Richmond and what's right for Philadelphia as a city. Please remove the LNG plant from the budget. That can be tabled. PGW said itself that they have wiggle room. They said before, we have a few years. We'd rather replace it a few years early than a few years too late.
You have
Let's
15
take,
seconds left.
Thank you. We can take the time to make the right decision about this. PGW has a lot of aging infrastructure that's going to cost billions. Doing a side hustle for LNG, for selling excess LNG, is only going to generate millions. It's not going to be the solution that we need to fight the billions that is addressing, that's what facing our community. Please take this seriously. Vote no, deny the LNG plant, and let's table that for a better decision later on. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Eric.
State Representative Hohenstein, would you like to make some comments on the record?
Thank you for providing me the time, even after I said I didn't want it. I just want to be real clear. I have signed the petition that was just referred to, and I do stand with our community. I think two issues I would like to make sure you understand about why I'm taking this position. One is our community health. We in the River Wards, as many of you or most of you know very well, have lived with years and years of industrial pollution and the health effects that come with that. And PGW generally does as good a job as any large utility of its kind can do, but it can do better. And I think in this particular situation, not just air pollution and not just the concept of using fossil fuels and that contribution to our climate change, but I think also the idea that this is a space where there can be that reconsideration, that recalibration of the overall policy towards something that improves people's health. And then second, I want to comment as someone who has been in environmental movements for a very long time. My first job out of college was as a canvasser for Clean Water Action. So I've been doing this stuff and I have it in my family as well. I am impressed by the folks who are bringing forth the request for restraint here by their restraint. What they are doing is not saying absolutely no. What they're saying is, let's make sure we're doing all of the necessary work, both on fiscal levels as well as on the environmental levels. And I think that is really key here. This isn't simply an environmental argument. It is also a pretty strong economic argument for the restraint that people are asking for. So that is what I have to say today, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Ellingson. We will now move to Ms. Wyszynski for emailed public comments. Were all public comments that were received before 9 a.m. this morning furnished to the commissioners for review?
Yes, they were, Chair.
And have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review the public comments that were received by 9 a.m. this morning? Thank you. Please mark the email public comments as Gas Commission Exhibit number 3. Are there any comments or questions from any of the commissioners at this point?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to take a moment to just thank commission staff, fellow commissioners, PGW's engagement, and members of the public on this important issue. I want to say before I cast my vote that I think we all agree something has to be done. And aging infrastructure at a time when we're focused on energy transition and supporting this administration's desire to do so. It's critical to me that infrastructure not fail and economic burdens do not continue on ratepayers. I think continuing this conversation is critical and important as we continue on this process. And I just want to say thanks again for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other?
Yes, I just wanted to remark on some of the comments that we heard today around public engagement. And I would just ask PGW work with the Gas Commission staff to review city best practices on community engagement, and like similar to the Philadelphia Water Department and other groups that actively engage with community members for this. Because if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Desant, last time we discussed this, said it was in the capital budget in the past, but there wasn't necessarily community engagement around this particular project, correct? Correct. Okay, thank you. Yes. So I think like reviewing city best practices on that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your participation as we deliberate. All identified exhibits will be entered into the record of this meeting. This matter is now before this commission for action. Is there a motion on the Philadelphia Gas Commission's final recommended decision for the fiscal year 2027 capital budget, associated forecast, and other matters?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the final staff recommendation to approve the fiscal 2027 capital budget, associated forecast, and other matters. I further move that we continue the tabling of the approximately 182 million request for the liquefier, with the exception of 4 million for the engineering study and 1 million for an environmental study.
The Vice Chair has made a motion to accept the final staff recommendation to approve the fiscal year 2027 capital budget, associated forecast, and other matters, and to continue the tabling of the approximately 182 million requests for the liquefier, with the exception of 4 million for the engineering study and 1 million for an environmental study. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
No opposition. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is such other business as may be properly brought before this commission. Is there any business to be brought before this commission?
Yes. Looking for sending staff and commissioners to the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, NARUC's 2026 Summer Policy Summit from July 19th to the 22nd in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Commissioner McGraw made a motion to send commissioners and staff to Summer Policy Conference. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Is there any other business to be brought before this commission? There being no further business, I direct Gas Commission staff and assign counsel from the Law Department to prepare the necessary orders and resolutions resulting from today's meeting. This meeting is adjourned.